2023, and I am now calling the meeting of the 2024 Election Committee of the Village of Martins Edition to order. Before we dive into tonight's agenda, which will begin with the committee's selection of a chair, vice chair, and secretary, I first wanted to introduce myself. For any of you who don't know me, I'm Katie Filipczak Howard. I serve as the vice chair on the VMA Council, and I will be serving as this year's election committee council liaison. I want to thank each of you on this year's committee and on past election committees for your time, energy, and expertise. You're delivering the democracy of our municipality in the form of our local election. And you play a pivotal role and will be driving the car. As liaison, I will be sitting in the passenger seat as these proceedings move forward. But still, I believe we share a common goal, and that is a stabilized election process. And I think the election plan of 2023 will help serve as a template to begin with. Lastly, I would like to add that as someone who has participated in the election process as a voter, as a resident, a candidate,
all right, I'll tell Katie. All right,
and an elected council member. Yes,
Katie. John Sharrow is just trying to connect on.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. I think Michael can handle that. It's Michael. Will enter him into the room. And you know, I also was just going to add that you know, just as someone who's participated in this process, as a voter and as a candidate and as an elected council member, that there are not many perks. That's probably glamorous. They're not really glamorous perks to the job. But one of them, I will say, that I appreciate is receiving mail addressed to the honorable. It really means something when I see those words, that it serves as a reminder of what it means to hold an office and how to act accordingly, honorably, and how to treat one another. And so I know there have been past hurts or frustrations on the election committee and with the election plan process that have unfortunately resulted in resignations by committee members and terse exchanges between residents. And while I can't personally go back in the past and patch those negative experiences, I'm optimistic that we are moving into a new chapter of healing that will result in a positive volunteer experience. We owe that to our community, and we owe that to ourselves. And last thing I would just say is that, my mother served as a VMA council member until her death in 2013, and she was a lifelong Beatles fan. And one of her Fab Four songs and advice for life was "Let It Be." And sometimes that's what we have to do to move forward. And I'm going to wish the best of luck to this committee, and I'm going to hand over the floor to begin the selection of your officers.
Thank you, Katie. Lovely.
So we need to have an election, y'all. And
speaking of which, yeah.
I personally want to express my confidence that any of the five of us would do a splendid job as chair of this committee. I will certainly help whoever lands in that seat. And this is, like I said, a team effort, all the way. So does anyone have any nominations?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
I would like to nominate Marty Langland for our chair. She has been a trooper, a well-informed, the best expert we can have. And I have 130% confidence in her as our leader.
And I would like to second that, Paul Weller. I agree with all you said.
Hello, Paul.
All right, let's unmute Jennifer and John. Welcome, John. Unmute yourselves. I will accept this honor because I think it is important to serve as a team, and I will accept it only on the condition that we really are a team. Everybody needs to work together on this, and I know we will. So, and I also want to say up front that before I accept your lovely nomination, if I screw up on anything, I want you to flag me right away.
We will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do not
you don't need to walk on eggshells.
Do not worry.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I want. I mean, like I tell people all the time, if I'm about to walk off a cliff, I expect my friends to yell, "Hey, don't do that." So you guys are officially in that order. This committee is really going to be fun to be on, and
Right,
and
so shall we take a vote?
yes, we need to do a vote. So,
Right.
uh,
So
Naomi, why don't you lead the vote?
all who vote yay, please say yay.
Yay.
Yay. Hello,
Any
Jen.
opposed? Feel free.
Anybody opposed? So good. Marty's our chair. So now
Thank
we
you
need a
all.
vice chair.
Yes.
And
Is there-
I would like to nominate Paul Weller as a vice chair. Anybody second?
I'll second that.
I'll second that. Yeah.
Okay, let's
Me
take
as
a
well.
vote. I'll say yeah. Paul, do you accept your nomination?
I accept the nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. So, all who say yay, please let us know. Yay?
Yay!
Yay.
Yay!
Any nays?
Thank you, Paul. Congratulations on the great honor.
So now we need a secretary.
There are two
And
ways
I
to
would-
do the secretary job. We could rotate it, or we could have somebody kind of, be the secretary and kind of, honcho that process of minutes and things. What do you think, Naomi?
So I'd like to nominate Jen. Jen, will you accept?
I'd prefer to rotate, or I was gonna nominate you, Naomi. So, um,
You know, I
I'm
just-
honored.
full
Yeah.
disclosure, I am the chair of the task force on anti-Semitism, which is a full plate. So that is why I cannot take a major responsibility on this committee. So I'll ask you again, Jen, would you accept the nomination?
I'd actually prefer to rotate, like, I'll be frank. I have a full-time job
Okay,
and an 11-year-old, and
oh boy,
so tomorrow I have to go to work, and then I'm going straight to the airport, and then I'm going to Europe for 2 days,
oh
not to
boy.
be back till Saturday night. And so, like tonight, I would have a very hard time being our secretary. I am happy to plan in advance and be our secretary in the future.
Okay,
And I would be happy to do more than my fair share.
okay,
But I'm if you're needing me to turn around stuff quickly, like I said, it's be tough for me to accept this nomination.
understood.
Yeah. So
I'm glad we're talking about this because, we don't have any timeline on the minutes except that they need to be circulated to the team before the next meeting so we can review them. So again, it's not like time pressure like they have to be done tonight. But I do think that rotating them is a nice way to take the pressure off people. And Jen, would you accept the nomination if somebody else volunteered to do the minutes for tonight?
yeah, I could do that. I could do
Fair-
that. I
fair
would
deal.
probably, I'm sure that there would be another instance where I would have a circumstance where work being what it is would make it tough, and then but I would just coordinate in advance. So I
Okay.
would accept the nomination with us all understanding that I may have to ask for help as we move forward on an ad hoc basis.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you. Naomi, let's finish the vote on this.
So would Paul be willing, I don't mean Paul, John be willing to accept the responsibility tonight?
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can.
Yeah, I really would feel that rotation would be the ideal way for everyone to get into and handle the minutes, et cetera, so forth. That would be, I would really prefer here again, to follow Naomi's, not Naomi's, but Jennifer, that to handle on a rotation basis, seriously, for a week or month, a month or two at a time or whatever.
Okay, so would you be willing to do it tonight?
Well, I'll do it tonight, yes.
Thank you,
Okay,
John.
Okay.
got it.
Thanks.
You're done.
And I want to proceed with the understanding what Jennifer says really applies to all of us. We're all going to need help, and we should all reach out and count on each other, for any part of this. I mean, nobody here should be shy about saying, I need help with this piece or that piece. We're all volunteers, we're all working hard, and I think, like I said, team members look out for each other. So thank you. And
Absolutely.
Marty,
yes,
you
yes, Larry.
did you actually vote on Jennifer?
We actually need to vote on Jennifer,
Right.
with the proviso that the rotation will be and that John will do it tonight. So all in favor of Jennifer, please raise your
Yay.
hands.
Yay.
Yay, aye.
I,
Anybody opposed? Jennifer, it's unanimous. It's a sweep. Thank you so much. Okay. And I
Thank
want
you,
to
John. Yeah.
yeah, truly, John. Thank you. Just take some notes tonight, and I can work with you on that tomorrow. I want to thank Katie very much for being our liaison. She's been really helpful in helping us get up and running here, and just a terrific resource for us, and has also volunteered. Katie, I'm quoting you what you said to me on the phone, that if we need some help, or we need documents or something, that Katie is going to be helpful. So she's not just here as window dressing. She's really here to assist us as our liaison. And Katie, I want to thank you in advance for all you've done already to prepare this first meeting.
Thank you, and congratulations to all of the committee members and to the officers. Congratulations, Marty, on being chair.
Either sympathy or condolences might also be in order, but no, I'm happy to do this, and happy to work with this crew. The next item on our agenda is a review, just sort of the workload we have in front of us. And I don't know if anyone has any questions there. There's nothing we need to vote on. That was just put there to kind of set out the main duties and the timetable that we need to follow. And tonight we have one decision item, which is to set the dates for the election, and then some other things that are kind of procedural. Our next big deadline in terms of documents we need to produce is the December 23 council meeting. And we need to have our election proposal, plan, ordinance now ready for early December, first week of December. So that's what to aim for on that. Did anybody have any questions about any of those work items? I just kind of laid them out real short just to let you all have a snapshot of what we're going to be doing this year. Questions, comments, thoughts?
well done. I think it's very well done.
Well, thank you, Paul. I wasn't
As
fishing for
always, very
compliments.
thorough.
I'm trying to be really thorough and conscientious here because, it makes things go easy.
I think your middle name is thorough.
Thank you. That's a nice compliment. Thank you, Naomi. Okay. First sort of action item we have is 810, review and confirm the committee's ethics guidelines. Now, I put that document together based on some earlier guidelines that previous committees had used. And like I said, when I sent them around to y'all, they're in the packet here, but I just think it's common sense. But when we talk about having ethical standards, that matters a lot. But what does that mean in terms of operational guidelines? So any comments, questions, thoughts on that one-page set of guidelines?
No, I thought it was really well done. Yeah.
So did I.
How do we publish them? Should we publish them?
No, that's an internal document for us. I mean, we could
Okay.
publish them. I have no objection to it. Jen, what did you say?
No, I just said I agreed that I thought it was really well done and thorough. And I'm sorry, I'm actually trying to find my video again.
That's okay.
So,
Do what you need to do.
Yep.
We're flexible here.
there we go.
Middle name is not just thorough, but flexible. So
I can't seem to find my video as well, but anyway, having said that, Marty, I think it's well done. Should we really get involved in understanding more about the ethics pertaining to our committee, or you think that it's
that's a good
clarified enough?
question. Yeah. Yeah, we're all subject to this ethics ordinance that the village passed in March 21. Because we are considered, officials, government officials in positions of public trust. And so we're all subject to the ethics ordinance. And one of the reasons I put together these guidelines is just, what does that mean? Well, where are the guardrails, what's okay and what's not okay. And a lot of ethics investigations in the companies that I work with as a consultant, an ethics violation is sort of in the eye of the beholder, right? It's whatever the decider thinks is unethical. And I thought, well, these are like, this is low hanging fruit. We should at least not do these things, right? To follow, not step off a cliff there. So yes, we're all subject to the overall ethics ordinance, and anybody can file an allegation, I suppose, about anything. So we need to be careful and we need to be thoughtful. And if we're not sure about something, my suggestion is check in with each other, before we go off. I think nobody here is acting like the Lone Ranger, certainly not me. And I think that, if you're not sure if something doesn't sit right, we need to help each other, make those judgment calls. But I did think it was useful for everybody to have the same basic expectations. So what we need to do with this document is adopt it as an internal working document. These are our principles. These are the guidelines we agreed to as a committee for this year. And we just need an internal committee vote to say, yes, we all think this makes sense. So I'm glad you do think it makes sense. So do you have any questions about any of them we should discuss now before we have a vote on this? But any questions, thoughts, anybody?
Do we need to vote on it?
Yes, ma'am. We should vote on this
Okay.
because these are the guidelines that we are accepting for ourselves. So
Okay,
call for a vote. All in favor of accepting, I think we call it confirming the committee's guidelines. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
I
Hi,
say
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? You're opposed, Naomi? No, you're for it. Okay,
No, I thought, yes.
for
I
it.
mean-
Okay,
a quick question, Marty.
sure.
You don't think that there's 3 members on Chestnut Street have any conspiracy problems?
I don't think so, but somebody could accuse us of it. There could be an allegation of the Chestnut Street crew. I think
Yeah.
it's just because the Chestnut Street people care a lot about our village, and we go to meetings, we talk about things. So I want to just say, if anybody raises that allegation, I am prepared to defend our integrity and our honor.
Thank you.
Larry, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. What did you actually just do?
We adopted as a committee a one-page set of guidelines to give us guardrails on where we see our ethical boundaries to be. For example, we will not campaign for any candidate. We will not treat candidates unequally. We will not necessarily disqualify voters or votes. That basically we've
Okay,
agreed
all
to the
right, all right,
principles
all
on
right.
that page.
Okay, so how does that in any way bind future committees?
Future committees would have to adopt the set of guidelines that they want. And
Okay,
they certainly, for next year's committee could take these and maybe agree to them, but they wouldn't be required to. This is not something that's codified anywhere. This is us as a committee setting our own guidelines, if that makes sense. I hope next year they do the same.
okay,
That help?
And just to be, I saw it in here, but I just want to make sure. Where's the comment about how many committee members can talk to each other? That's number 6, right?
That is on, yeah, let me pull it up here. Hold on one sec. Let me just,
And any 2 committee members can talk to each
yeah,
other? Yeah.
that's number 6, and that's under the Open Meetings Act requirements. If you have a
Right, well,
5-person committee, any 2 people can
right.
talk to each other.
Okay, so on the walkability task force, I believe Ron Bolt did a presentation to that group
Mhm.
about their ethical considerations. This is a more serious committee. Is there any need for that to happen?
We had our briefing from Ron Bolt at the volunteer orientation session last
okay.
week.
Oh, cool, rock and roll.
So we're good on that. Yeah, thank you for
Okay.
checking that. You're looking out for us. Thank you.
So any of you youngsters, rock and roll is used to be commonly said, but okay.
Yes, indeed. All right. Thank you. Thank you again. I do think it's important that we just make clear about our own expectations for ourselves.
So
Next, go
I
ahead.
have I would just want to interject. Until now, we haven't had a way to communicate with each other legally, except individually, and until we have a mailbox that is dedicated to the committee. And I'm wondering, Michael, when you will have a chance to set up that mailbox.
So the three,
Michael,
Yeah, Michael, that's a
Yeah,
question
he's a-
for you.
yeah, the
Yeah.
three standing committees already have email boxes. So it's just a matter of turning those over, changing the password and making sure they're ready to distribute to everybody. The other thing I wanted to make sure is that everyone has completed their conflict of interest and oath of office forms before I did that. For the two new task forces, that's actually a question I have for the council. And I know I need to respond to you, Naomi, about the task force that you're on as well.
Okay,
But
but
there's
for
not
this-
an email for that new
Yeah.
one yet. So the question is whether we want to create that or how we want to set that up.
okay, so for this committee, we will have a mailbox that you will let us know as to how we can what is the link that we can access in order to have public conversations.
Correct. Once that's ready, I will go ahead and provide all 5 committee members that the login to that account.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Naomi. And let's do that sooner rather than later, because I'm very proud to report that all 5 of us have turned in our paperwork and COI forms. So what can I say? All-star team here. So Michael, the sooner the better. Thank you for that. Then the next thing on this is the 8:15 item on our agenda here. This is sort of housekeeping. We need to decide the format for our committee meetings this year. One of the things that caused, I think, a fair amount of community tension in the last couple of years is that a number of committees, not just the election committee, had a format where residents could only talk at the end of the meeting, or could only, resident comments might be at the beginning, but nobody knew what you're going to vote for, so that wasn't very helpful. I sent everybody in the committee a copy of a document that I did for the council back in April 22 that talked about formats for committees. Did you have a chance to read that one?
Yes,
Yeah. And my recommendation is that it's much more democratic and friendly and just effective to treat committee meetings and council meetings like a conversation among neighbors, because we're a small neighborhood. And so one way to do that is to
Right.
allow public comments on each item on the agenda before the committee makes a decision. And that takes more time. We had 5 decision items on our agenda today. And if you give 5 minutes to the community to speak on each of them, that's adding an extra 25 minutes to our meeting. And that can slow things down. But I think it's much more important in terms of just community goodwill and confidence and trust and all those good things, to let people actually have a way to weigh in on it, on a particular agenda item. And I think that the way we have the agenda lined up here with action items, so it's real clear what this committee will be voting on, we could. So it's our call. Under the Open Meetings Act, we're allowed to have almost no public comments. Be like the community would be the audience, and they would watch. But I think a participatory format really works better. I see Larry's got a hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hope I'm not making this extra difficult, but
Not at all.
I would appreciate. Oh boy, Marty, what an opportunity. I think you should deliver food to each place that's talking. What's the position on chat?
I've been told by Michael, and I also talked to a couple council members, I guess 2 years ago about it. Susan Kahn and I were both concerned when the council took the public chat off of the council meetings. And I was
Right.
told it was a legal issue, that we couldn't do it. And Katie, and I guess Arthur's still here. And Michael, is that still the case, that we're not supposed to do public? I like public chats myself. I was a little dismayed when they disappeared from the council meetings, but what's the status of that?
Yeah, the reason for that is that the chat doesn't get into the recordings or the official part of the meeting. So the Maryland State Open Meetings Act Committee has advised against using it because the chat portion does not become a part of the official transcript.
It wouldn't
That's
be,
right. Isn't that right, Katie? I think that was the reason, and Michael.
Yeah, yeah,
That's how I understand.
that's right. And also there's an equity issue as well, because not everyone has access to the chat. So some people are going to see it and other people aren't. And that creates side
Right.
conversations. And the state board has advised against even texting each other during meetings and those types of things, because that causes some concerns.
mm, yeah, I think if we adopted the more participatory format for our committee meetings where we allow brief comments, maybe 5 minutes on each action item, that can help replace the need for a chat. What do you guys think? I'm open to whatever you think.
Okay with me. Thanks, Marty.
Mhm. Anybody
know,
have
I
strong
think-
feelings?
I
Go ahead.
I struggled with this myself. We might want to put in the agenda after each item, community resident comment, so that it's kind of structured as opposed to interfering with our discussion. So you might want to have comments before and after, or just after each item, but structure it so that we're not interfered with when we're having our own discussion.
Does that make sense
So
to
you're
folks?
kind of,
We good on that?
Looks like Larry has a comment or a question, his hand's up.
Well,
Larry, go for it.
well, in previous council meeting, weren't many of us, we saw issues that should have been brought up or discussed by the council members that weren't, and a vote went ahead. And there was no opportunity to even get that to have a pause and those requests or concerns brought up. So then you're stuck with saying something about it after the fact. How would you deal with that?
I think that's a reason why we would want to add little 5-minute windows for community input before we make decisions on each of these items. Forgive me, my phone's ringing. I'm going to have to get rid of that. But I think that, again, the more open and accessible we are before we make a decision, the fairer we're going to be, and the more informed we'll be when we make a decision. So I like Naomi's suggestion about putting a little brief window for community input before each decision on each decision item. Does that take care of it? Would that work?
Yeah, sounds good.
as opposed to after.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody's like sitting there waving their hands, it's like, stop, you're making a terrible error here. I certainly would want to hear that before we make a decision. I'd be willing to reconsider a decision if somebody does that immediately after we make it, like, oh, you didn't pay attention to XYZ.
Yeah,
We want to
yeah.
know that, My feeling is to be open and just accessible about this, but as you said, not to let it completely run our meetings. I think putting a 5-minute, window on each item is enough time for somebody to raise a concern and clarify it, but not necessarily, torpedo our entire meeting.
Yeah,
So,
I think before a discussion is a better idea.
all right, well, let's actually have a procedural vote to adopt that as our meeting format, that we will in fact allow and welcome community input before each decision item for up to 5 minutes. And that we believe in participatory meetings rather than restrictive ones. How's that?
Yeah,
Somebody
I
make that
make a
motion?
motion.
Any
I
seconds?
make a
second.
motion.
All right, Naomi moves, Jennifer seconds, all in favor?
Yes, I move. Yeah,
All in
Anybody
favor.
opposed? Any opposed?
I have some reservations about it, Marty, myself,
Sure.
and Naomi.
Uh-huh.
To really think it through, I mean, number one, for the public to get involved, it's 5 minutes is just not going to do it. I mean, it could go on for it could go on for a half hour if there's something real controversial subject. I really don't know the solution to it at this point in time until I really think it through. But to me, it just doesn't seem appropriate just to put a 5-minute, limit on it. And but here again, that's my opinion. Okay, I think we should think it through before we adopt it, frankly, okay?
Okay. So
Come
we have
up
a split, here, John, that's a valid concern. I would say that we could amend our motion to say that normally we would allow a short window, like 5 minutes before each decision item for community input, with a proviso that we could allow more time if something was more controversial. Would we, is
Well,
there
that
a
would-
motion
that
to
would-
accept that amended? Would that
It
do
would be
it?
acceptable or have the, yeah, I mean, I'm sure we could accommodate the public to listen to their concerns and have our concerns exemplified as well, seriously. But here again, that's my opinion.
That's an
Okay.
important opinion.
Okay.
So do we have a motion to amend our previous motion to say that we'll have a meeting format that does allow limited brief community input before each decision item, with a proviso that we could make that community comment period longer if it seemed advisable? Does anyone
I
second?
make that motion.
Yeah, I'll go with that, yeah.
So John seconds, Naomi made the
Yep.
motion. All in
Yep.
favor, please say aye.
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 I like the way we're working together here. This is great, guys. All right, moving along to our agenda. Okay. We've decided the format for our committee meetings. We need to next schedule the next 2 committee meetings. I'm on the 8:15 line item here. I would suggest that since, that the committee work here is in my past experience, not evenly spread through the year. That, we got a lot of upfront, so we have to get these documents ready, by early December, and that's going to be, a little bit of work. And then we get a little bit of a breathing space, and then we have to verify the voter roll, But, I think for this month, if you all can do Wednesdays, I'm looking at my calendar here, Wednesday, the 18th, and then November 1st is a Wednesday. And 8 p.m. on Wednesdays works for me. Can we go ahead and get those 2 meetings on our schedule? Are you going to be in town? Are you going to be in the country, Jennifer, on the 18th and the 1st? Do we know?
I am supposed to be in the country on the 18th, and I'm looking at my calendar on the 1st. And I think both days should work. I will tell you that I was originally going to travel the first week of November, but I would think, the 1st was not in that date stream. So I think that would work great for me.
Anybody else? October 18th and November 1st are the proposed dates.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can make those 2 dates, but I can't do the second Wednesday night of any month. I'm on the Chevy Chase Fire Board, and that's when we meet. But those 2 dates are okay.
So we need to do like the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays for you so that your Fire Board Wednesday is very clear. That's
right.
great. Thank you. Nomi, I can't hear you. Unmute yourself.
The 18th doesn't work for me. That's an aberration on my calendar. I signed up for a play on Martin Luther King at the Roundhouse on
Cool.
Wednesday, 18th. But I can do it on the 1st. Usually Wednesday evenings work for me. Thursdays, well, no. Anyway, the 1st works. Of course, then we go into the holidays. The 8th
Right.
works.
Okay. We may need to limp along without you on the 18th, but we'll
Yeah,
make sure
that's
that
fine.
is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. John, you looking at your calendar?
Yeah, I'm flexible on these dates, fine. What have committee agreed on so far? The 1st, 18th, the Wednesday, okay?
Wednesday, the 18th and November 1st. which is
Okay,
also
that's
Wednesday.
fine. I agree. I'm fine with that. Thank you.
That's great. Okay, can we have a motion to set our next 2 meetings for Wednesday, October 18th and Wednesday, November 1st? Will somebody so move?
I
I
move.
move.
Yep.
Jennifer
Yep.
moves, Naomi seconds, John Sharrow thirds.
Yep.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good to go. In that sort of housekeeping item there at 8:15, we did the format for the meetings. We've got our schedule. Michael's going to set up our committee email as soon as he can. Last piece of that is that somebody needs to take the Open Meetings Act certificate class, which I actually have done, but it was years ago. It's like a half-hour uh, at the orientation session, I think Jeff Blander called it a half-hour reading comprehension test. It's not a big deal. Would someone like to volunteer to do that?
I
We
can
need
do
to have a
that.
dead. Would you do that, Jen?
What's the deadline for doing it?
When you can,
Okay.
sooner rather than later. Be nice to do it before our next meeting. So you got 2 weeks.
Okay.
But you will not be shot at sunrise if you don't do it for 3 weeks. I promise.
Okay.
All right. So
Yep.
Jen will have our open meetings, and it's not a bad class. I mean, we probably all should take it at some point. But Jen, thank you for doing it. At the end, you get a certificate, which you can frame and hang on your wall.
So it's like a online test and then you submit your
Mhm.
results and they give you a certificate. Is that the,
Yes, ma'am.
okay?
Won't take you long. I suspect you'll pass the test on the first try. I have confidence. John? John, you
Are you
want to say
talking-
something? Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I didn't have any questions.
Okay. Anybody else? Larry, anybody? Okay. Well, we are moving right along here. Community comments, questions, and suggestions. That's you, Larry and Arthur. Welcome. Anything so far from you want to add?
Well, this is actually, I'm sorry, this is not exactly your bailiwick. It's more like Michael's question.
Mhm.
Is it possible for any member of the village to take that open meetings class? Is there a way to post it on the website?
I
That's a
believe-
great idea.
I believe
Michael?
so. It's just a public class through the University of Maryland.
Right.
They have a local government center. I can send around I'll get the link for that and send it around.
Or just if you could put it on the website so that anybody can at any time go to it. I think that would be one heck of a we're trying to open up the communication with the neighborhood, and that would sure help. I mean, Marty gets, she's older now, so she needs to be able to refresh herself every week or so on this.
Let me mention that in the committee guidelines that I sent to everybody at the beginning, there is a link in there to the Maryland Open Meetings Act training. So if you still have that, go look at it, click on the link, and it'll take you there. And it's a training session that takes you through the major sections, do's and don't do's, and tries to give examples. And then there are questions at the end. And that's when you answer all those questions, you get the famous certificate that you can put up on the wall. And that qualifies you as having taken it. So click on the link and that'll take you to the site.
Yeah, that was very helpful, Arthur. Having that document.
Remember, Marty, I put that together because of yours and Paula's suggestions. So those guidelines owe themselves to some of your and other suggestions.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the credit. I think they're actually really good. So, but I give you credit for writing them up. So thank you again. And that link, again, I think it's great that everybody should take it. People need to know that what their rights are as citizens under the Open Meeting Act. And I'm a big fan of participation, as you all have figured out, I'm sure. Okay, moving along here. Any other community comments? Okay, we move to our action items. Scheduling the dates of the 2024 election. And I would like to propose a schedule that has election day as May 7th. And then the vote counting would take place on May 21st or 22nd, 2 weeks later. The nomination period begins 75 days before election day, and that would be Thursday, February 22nd. Candidate filing date is 45 days before election day, and that's Saturday, March 23rd. The forum under the 2023 regs is in the second half of April, which is, I think, that the time it should be. I think that's correct. So that could be on Wednesday or Thursday evening, April 24 or 25, depending on when the candidates are available. So that's a workable schedule. I'm open to amendments. What do you guys suggest? Any changes in that you want to make, or what should we do? I mean, we need to vote on this tonight.
Yeah, I'm checking the holidays,
Mhm.
the Easter and Passover holidays in April.
Mhm.
Other than that, I'm fine.
I'm looking for my calendar here. See if my calendar says when those are. Let's see, I'm looking at April. Got a full moon on the
Passover.
23rd.
Passover is the 22nd.
is the 22nd, so 24th or 25th of April for the forum should be okay, right?
Yeah.
Easter is the 31st of March.
In
Okay,
March.
And
Easter's early
Eid-
this
Okay.
year.
Eid
It's
is April
early this year.
9th.
Right. Mhm.
Okay. So having the candidate filing deadline on March 23rd, which is a Thursday, is well before Easter. And
Yeah, I
then
think-
doing the candidate forum on the 24th or 25th is after Passover.
Yeah,
So-
it works.
We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
What did you say about the nominations start and stop?
The nominations under the current regulations the nomination period is announced. We announce it 75 days before election day. And I got my calendar out the other night and figured it out. So if Tuesday, May 7th is our election day for 2024, 75 days before that is a Thursday, February 22nd. And so we would need to have it's an official announcement, an official election announcement.
And when's the close?
That would close on the candidate filing date is 45 days for election day. So it's like 30 days for the nomination period. The filing date would be Saturday, March 23rd. So nominations would open on the 22nd of February and close on Saturday, March 23rd.
All right.
Make
thanks.
sense?
Thanks.
Yeah, Marty, could you run through those real quick, those dates again?
You bet. They were on the draft agenda that I sent you guys earlier, but they're not on the final agenda that's in the packet here because I wasn't sure what we do. But all right, so here we go. You start calculating from election day is May 7th, Tuesday, May 7th. The vote counting is 2 weeks after that, so that's either May 21st or May 22nd. Nomination period begins 75 days before election day, so the nomination period would start on Thursday, February 22. Candidate filing date is 45 days before election day, so that works out to be Saturday, March 23rd. And then the forum is in the second half of April on either Wednesday or Thursday evening, April 24 or April 25. And I'll write this up, or we will write this up collectively in the minutes so that everybody has it. And at the council meeting, this coming council meeting in October, we'll report this in our committee report that we decided on this date. But we do need to have a final vote. Did everybody vote aye on this, on the dates?
Yes,
Yep,
I
do.
Oh,
John,
good. All right, passes unanimously. Item 2 on the action items. Katie said at the beginning of our meeting that, we really have a mandate here to kind of stabilize this whole election process. And I certainly wholeheartedly committed to that. And I think that means that we keep the 2023 rules and regulations as the basis. Now, they might change a little bit, but the overall structure that the council approved in 2023, I think is very good. And I really am grateful to the council members who are here. Katie, Arthur, thank you. So my suggestion as your chair would be wholeheartedly to use the 2023 rules and procedures as the basis for our 2024 regulations. Do we have a motion on that effect?
I so move.
Paul moves.
I
And
second.
I second.
we got thirds and fourths on that one.
Third and
All
fourth.
all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you all for your commitment to keeping our lives simpler. And it should make this whole process a whole lot less stressful than it's been in recent years. All right, so we have 100% approval on that. The next suggestion comes from a number of people, including Peter and Susan Kahn. Susan, I think you're still on the line. I don't know if, Peter did you too. A lot of residents have said, and Peter, of course, is a former chair of this committee, that we really should go back to what we had prior to 2021, which was a standard ordinance that did not change from year to year. The procedures don't need to be rewritten every year. I mean, every year the committee has to set the election schedules, like we just did, but we don't need to rewrite the book. And so the proposal here is to take the 2023 rules and procedures document, which is one of the documents in the packet tonight, and take the dates out of it. Right now it says 23 this, 23 that. And Peter Kahn, what a good guy, actually over the summer took a start at that, of going through and pulling out the dates and putting in the generic language. So instead of saying that the nomination period will open on date X, which the 23 regs said, ours will say the nomination period opens 75 days before election day. So Peter, I want to thank you. I don't know if you're still online, But if you are, I want to thank you for that draft. Do you want to talk about it a little bit? Because I'm grateful that you started. It looked good to me, that the thing you did.
Well, I thought there were some ambiguities in the 23 draft. And I don't recall them completely. I think there was ambiguity about nominating somebody else and exactly what had to happen for that to take place. And there were other, all of it was all minor. I think replacing the dates with the standard language, they could later be substituted by the committee. It's completely straightforward. And I don't think there's anything that I put in that is anything more than just clarifying language and making it happen the way it's supposed to happen.
I just want to
so-
thank you very much for doing that as a volunteer, who just cares about good elections. So thank you. We will have a second decision on each of these different items. So what we can do for our next meeting is circulate the sort of long-term standard version of the 23 regs, which just has the dates taken out in it. And then we'll decide on that at our next meeting. But I just wanted sort of a overall decision that, do we want to have that, take the 23 regs and make them a long-term standard ordinance so they don't need to be redone every year? So can we have a motion on that action item?
I move.
Naomi moves. Any seconds?
I'll second.
Paul seconds. All right, the motion on the floor is that whether or not the committee should make this a long-term standard ordinance so future committees can just decide the election dates and carry out regular procedures instead of having to write a new ordinance every year. All in favor, please raise your, we have a community comment before we vote. I see Larry's got his hand up.
Are you saying that you want to take this down as part of your agenda business for this year? You're not freezing this to be.
The proposal, Larry, is to go back to what VMA used to have, which was a standard ordinance that did not change from year to year. The procedures stayed the same, just the dates changed. And then we've had this interregnum here where we've had new ordinances every year and it's all been so contentious. The proposal here is to take the 23 regs, which the council approved, and they went through them very carefully, and make that sort of a long-term standing ordinance so that people next year can just say, okay, we accept the procedures. Here are the new dates for the following year.
Okay, so my question, so I'm a little confused about the terminology.
Okay.
What you're saying. So what's the difference? Okay, so here's the issue. I was going to bring it up or ask it after this, but those of you that were at the last council meeting were aware that maybe you're aware that I spent a lot of time trying to find a effective, clear, simple for village voters to access absentee ballot method. And it turns out the federal government had created it and have a form that is so easy for any VMA villager to access and utilize.
True.
And I was going to ask that a reference to that and perhaps that the election committee would identify that as a acceptable document with a link to it so that anyone can use it. And I don't know how that affects what you're saying right now.
I can answer that, Larry. That's a good point. One of the things that is in the set of documents that we will need to approve over the next 2 meetings is the voter verification procedures and what counts as adequate documentation that someone's actually living here. What Larry's talking about was really some very thorough work on his part about the council's decision at the September council meeting, just happened last month, to change the definition of qualified voters. And, again, we have to verify who's a qualified voter under the new definition. And what Larry suggested was this use of a government form, which I also thought was very handy. And Larry, that's going to be one of the action items that we're going to talk about when we get to the point at the next meeting where we're looking at the actual wording in these documents. And I am entirely willing to take your suggestion to or do a reference or a link to that federal document, because that's one way the election committee can verify a voter.
Right.
And I thought it was
It's-
useful.
yeah. And it's so, what's really neat about that is that if you sign it and lie, it is you've lied on a federal form.
Yeah,
which is-
that's
has
serious.
Far more, yes, far more power than some village form.
This is true. And I think what we'll do is put this on the agenda when we get to that point of the document next meeting.
And
Right
so
now-
this vote does not affect that.
No, this is a motion on more general terms. Do we as a committee want to, move the village forward by converting the 2023 regs into the format of a standing ordinance so that people don't have to do this every year?
All right, thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right, we were about to vote on that. The motion on the table is, shall we make this a long-term standard ordinance? So future committees can just decide the election dates and carry out regular procedures instead of having to do a new ordinance every year. All in favor, please say aye or wave.
I,
Aye. Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, unanimous, thank you. I think that's a good idea to do, so all in favor, 5 for 5. All right, the next one is another housekeeping amendment. We have, as I was looking through to try to, straighten out my own thinking and get my brain clear on all this stuff, we have 5 different election documents at the moment. I don't know why we have 5, but we do. That's where we are. That's what we've inherited. The main one is the 2023 election ordinance, the overall rules and procedures. And there's also the voter roll verification procedures the council approved in 2022. And that's where Larry's suggestion about documentation would come in. And we also have procedures for the mailboat contractor, which are very similar to what we did back in 2020, but I would use the ones for 2023. We have a form procedure, which is 1 page. And then we have the vote counting procedures, which the council approved in 2023. So there are 5 different documents there. And we will need to have separate votes on each of those 5 in the next 2 meetings to, make sure that they say what they need to say. I don't plan any major changes in them. I think that they may need some, minor stuff, but as Peter said, no major changes, keep the changes as simple as possible and as few as possible, is my take on it. But this is a housekeeping measure. Should we put them all in one place in the ordinance? I mean, if you're going to have election procedures, why would they be scattered among 5 different documents? I don't know. It's not essential that we combine them. It's just more complicated for future committees if you have 5 different documents instead of 1. So what do y'all think on this? Open discussion.
I personally think that that's a great idea and that it'll make it easier for residents as well to actually understand what the procedures are, what the places that, future election committees and future councils may want to look at, in terms of who's eligible, et cetera. But I think 5 separate documents makes it more confusing than it needs to be. And I think that not just the committee, but the public will benefit if we consolidate for them over.
Anybody else? Naomi, what do you
Nick?
think?
it makes a lot of sense.
Paul,
To
John?
consolidate them all. Yeah.
I don't have a problem with 5, but I do want to ask the question about the contractor. Is it our committee decision who we will use for as a vote contractor, or is that up to the council?
Good question, John. In the past, in my experience, I can't speak to every year here, the committee basically recommends that the staff, Michael and the council, choose the contractor for the year. And we've looked at various contractors over the last 5 years, done a lot of, checking on their references and all that. And so the contractors actually, the council decides yes and tells Michael, do the contract with company XYZ. But the committee recommends which company we think, would do the job. And I don't think this is one we need to spend a whole lot of time on, because my own take on it, having watched Eclectic, the current company we've been using for a couple of years, is that they've done a pretty good job. Not perfect, but pretty good. John, and then we'll
I
go
would
to Larry.
agree from my that, they have done a good job. And that's what I was asking, who really has the final decision on it? Is it the council, or of course, we just make the recommendation and the council will obviously say yay or nay, or come up with another contractor, I guess, but whatever. We'll see what happens.
Yep. And Michael, of course, has a role in this because he's our village manager. He's the one who actually,
Yeah.
Does the contract. So Larry, got your hand up there.
Yeah, so this document, these multiple documents you're referring to are procedural. Is that right? Their guidelines are procedural or regs. They're not report forms or affidavits that this committee needs to submit to the council.
No, the committee needs to submit two things to the council. One is a monthly report, which, on what we did at our meetings. And the other is for the December 23rd, 2023 meeting, the December 2023 council meeting. We need to submit the final proposal, our recommendation for the proposed election rules for the 24 election. And then the council, of course, first votes to introduce those, and 30 days later votes to adopt those.
But
and presumably it'll go smoothly.
That's not what you're saying right now. You're saying these other documents are procedural documents that you want to combine.
Yeah, that all the election procedures, in my opinion, should be, in one place in a procedural document. That's what the ordinance is. The charter has the overall election rules, the big picture, and the ordinance should have all the procedures in it.
Right. So the reason I'm asking you this in this way is something called for the record, so that future committees don't say, "Oh, we thought that meant these other things." I just want to eliminate any confusion on that.
Always good, Larry. Thank you. Yeah. So the motion on the floor is to consolidate the election procedures in one place in the overall ordinance. That could be adding, as appendices beyond what the main ordinance is now. I mean, we can figure out how we want to do that, but this is just a yes or no question. Do we want to consolidate or no? All in favor of consolidation, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye, for me
Aye.
too. So that's unanimous. And I think it will make it simpler. And Jen, I really liked your point about easier for the residents and voters to understand, not just for us. Okay, we're at item number 5, and we're almost on time here. In fact, we are on time. Let's see. Should we as a committee recommend that the council authorize hiring a short-term contractor to help us verify the voter roll this year? My recommendation would be, yeah, we need to do that. What do y'all think? Open discussion.
Yeah, I would certainly agree.
Agree. Aye.
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 We didn't even call a vote yet.
Yep.
All in favor of making this recommendation, please say aye.
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 All opposed? None. Yeah, the voter roll this year is going to be a little more complicated, a lot more complicated perhaps, because of the new change, the definition of a qualified voter and how we operationalize that. And also, there's still a lot of questions out there about the number of voters, which jumped a lot last year. Larry, I recognize you. Oh, I say your piece.
Yeah. So pretty much the same committee, election committee, existed in the past 2 years.
There was an overlap of membership in the last 2 years. That's true.
Yeah, and a significant overlap, sufficient that for them to have done their duty to verify the voter roll and have 120 some odd people discrepancy between the 2 years, and refuse to disclose how they did that and what action should happen. Isn't there some kind of report that they were required to do? Do you have that? Do you know what went on?
That's a good question, Larry. And again, I don't really have the answer to your question in terms of what the accurate number in the voter roll is. I hope and trust that it's close to 747, that's more accurate than the year before when there were only 625 people on the voter roll.
How is that possible?
Well, it's possible if one does not get the word out that young voters who turned 18 should now, sign up and vote. There are a lot of ways it can happen. And, an undercounted election roll is a problem, but people do have to sign up for the voter
Right.
roll. So if people are solicited, join the voter roll, sign up here, and they don't do it, and then the following year they get the second solicitation, and then the second year they do it, that's good. That's great. I mean, I think that we want all voters, or eligible voters should be voters. So there is a document called the voter roll verification policy that the council approved in March 22, I believe it was March 2022. And that was actually in the packet here. It was marked draft, but the council did adopt it. It's final. And Katie was gonna, so you can get a clean copy of the final one of that. Last year for the 23 committee, they people did ask, what's your 23, are you using the 22 voter roll verification document or not? And they said they weren't, but then they didn't provide an alternative document in terms of posting it publicly. And so that may be something that Katie, as our liaison, can get for us. But we'll be looking at that at the voter roll verification
Yeah.
procedures, whether we're using the 22 version or whether we get the 23 version. I assume that they're not too different. The explanation that Michael gave, I thought was pretty good at, I guess it was the June council meeting. Michael said that the 23 committee was more thorough in checking the county voter roll and, all the different sources you use.
Okay.
So
But
go ahead.
okay. Well, if it's a good government, in my opinion, if it's good government, and this is no reflection on Michael, because I'm just so, admiration of the quality of the work that he's done. But you guys should not be doing some of this work through an employee of the council who have members that are running for election.
That's a
That's
fundamental principle. The incumbent candidate's
So,
employees should not
they're-
be handling the voter roll. This is true.
Absolutely. So there, you said it right there. And because of that, and I don't really care what they did, but I think we need a clarification of what that was, not for pointing fingers, but to then pursue that for the flaws that we can then eliminate, so that we have, I mean, I'm sure you've looked at this, Marty. I know I have. It is a zoo to try to actually confirm a voter roll. It's not it's nowhere
It's not
near
real
as
easy.
simple as-
No.
yeah. It's a
Larry,
nightmare.
I have to jump in here, even though I'm not a member of the committee or a liaison, but I am a resident.
You're welcome to speak, Arthur, anytime.
Your
Arthur, I was
presumption
going to
that,
ask you actually, as the former liaison to the last year's committee, if you could answer about this.
well,
So
the
thank you.
presumption that an increase in number represents a flaw in the process is simply illogical. It
I never
represents
said
the
that.
strength of the process.
I never
that they
said that.
drug people out of the woodwork. I
never
was
said that.
I was looking
Let
at
me
the
let me
voter roll.
clarify, Arthur, if I could just for a moment interject here. I think what Larry was saying is that the previous year, which had only 625 voters, may have had a flawed process. Not that last year there was
Oh,
a flawed
okay.
process.
And
I don't think
that's-
that either was a flaw. There was extended efforts to remind everybody, as Marty said, that young people who've just turned 18, who are at college, can vote, that people who are resident in a household, whether you're a relative or not, if you're a caregiver who lives there, all such people are qualified to vote. And I think that the community was reminded of that effectively.
it's not-
There were efforts to improve the public communications from lessons learned in the past.
Yeah, thank you, Arthur, but that's not what I was said. I'm not I would not indicate that anything was erroneous, something that people didn't do right. As I said, when you start looking at this, it is a can of worms that if you were actually trying to say there is a right way to do this, you're out of your mind. There isn't. The question is, what were the procedures? Obviously, it's an atypical occurrence then when a third of your village houses have to have people turning 18 to make the numbers as you represented them. It's an anomaly, and the issue is, what can we do to clarify those things? And also, what could we do to put in place the things a new voter should do so that it's clear that somebody who says, I'm a voter. You know, if I want to vote anywhere in any other election, I have to ask for that to do that. I have to submit to get registered.
And we do require the current regulations, and these go way back to 2015 or before, that people who want to vote have to provide some documentation, a driver's license or utility bill or something. That's been in place for a long time. And I think this committee will need to really do kind of a bit of a deep dive on the voter verification procedures document in a future meeting when we get to that document. So Larry, I think that your points are well taken and to be continued. Because I talked to Boris, I can't pronounce his last name, but he's the director of the County Board of Elections. I said, you know, we really need to know how to do this. And he said that we probably needed some help to do it because it's a big job, as you said. And he gave me some guidelines, which we can discuss when we get to that agenda item at the next meeting, of how one does verify a voter. And of course, Arthur, we have the new qualified voter definition that the council approved last year. And I know that Ron was asked at the council meeting to provide some language for the election regulations and how we would implement possibly that new definition. And I've looked at it, and you and I have talked about it. So that piece about what the voter roll verification process is going to be is something that we'll probably need to do a little bit of work on this year. Go ahead, Larry.
The final thing on that is I would like, since this is a sunshine state for laws and governing, I would like that there be perhaps in your guidelines or procedures that there be a clear explanation each year of actions taken to the changes on the voter roll, so that people don't have to wonder about it, and it is part of the actions of the committee to present that.
I agree. The committee should explain any questions that people have. I think that the more open and straightforward we are about answering public questions, that's part of our job. You know, we're public officials, we're accountable, we answer public questions. And so I certainly support that. Do other committee members want to join in on just the general principle of explaining what goes on in elections when there's an issue? Jen?
No, I totally support that. I mean, I think any changes we make, we should be, whether it winds up in the ordinance as an amendment, it makes a lot of sense to me, so that the public can follow the arc of the story and that there's accountability.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, Marty, I have a question. Can you hear me, Marty?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, Marty, is the contractor doing a mail vote the same as the contractor doing the helping for the voter rolls?
No, it doesn't have to be, and I don't think it would be.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just asking, was it last year? I don't recall.
There was no contractor helping with the voting roll last year. That
Oh,
landed,
okay.
I'm afraid,
So that's
entirely on
going to
the
be new
staff.
this, then that's going to be new this year as a
Yeah,
item.
that we
That's
would
what I was-
actually, yeah, I think we need some outside help, partly because of the new definition of qualified voter, and partly because, there were these questions about explaining, what happened here. And, I think that I'm all for public transparency. So, but you would have two different contractors. And we could, it could be just a paralegal, a smart, very thorough, conscientious paralegal could probably give us the kind of staff support. But the point made at the beginning by, I think it was, I can't remember who made it now, that Michael and Aaron are wonderful staffers, but it's not appropriate for them to be doing voter verification because they would be verifying the people who are voting for their bosses. So you want to have a kind of a firewall there. It's one thing to pull voter data, but it's another thing to be the one who verifies the voters. That the committee is responsible for verifying the voter roll, not the staff. And the second reason, of course, is just respect. Michael and Aaron have a lot to do. They don't have time to verify voters. And I think that's going to be a big enough job this year that we're going to need as a committee some assistance. And of course, we just voted to recommend that the council do
I
that.
couldn't agree more, really. I think that needs to be a separate issue and hire another contractor to do that.
And that
But
contractor would
that's up
report
to
to
the committee.
us.
Yeah,
as a
that's up to the
committee.
committee, I guess.
Yeah,
Right.
report to the committee.
Sure.
So, Any other
Thank you
questions
for
about that?
clarifying that. Okay.
Oh, this is a good discussion. I want to make sure everything's crystal clear, you know? Any questions anytime are good questions. Just saying, you know, just saying. Don't sit there and wonder, ask it, you know, let's talk about it. Larry, you got your hand up again. No, Michael has his hand up. Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, now that I've been here for the full year, I've tried to do a better job of keeping track of who has moved in and out of the village as well. So I know there's a number of sources where we get all of our, confirm who our residents are. So I'll be able to, have a list of everyone that's moved into the village since I've started, which has now been a year. So
Can we give Michael a round of applause?
Yes, please.
Can we wish Michael? Thank you,
Well,
Michael.
wait until you see how good that list is. But
Yeah.
I'm sure I've missed somebody, but I try. And
I know.
and there are,
I
I think there's from the tax data, there's 330 properties in the village of Martin's Additions. And I think, I know who at least one resident at every single one of those addresses. So we do know a lot, and then we also get the county, voter roll, their entire voter
Right.
roll. And the thing with that is the county voter roll in Martin's Additions is not a very clean document, and there's a lot of, I was having
Boris.
lots of data issues with their data. So
Yeah,
I actually trust our data more than I trust the county's voter roll.
I do
And
too. I do
Yeah.
too. I'll tell you why, because when I had my conversation a couple weeks ago with Boris, the head guy at the County Board of Elections, he asked that we as a village help update with whatever we find, because he knows their county voter roll is pretty much out of date. And he suggested a couple of techniques we can use as we can talk about next week, or next meeting. But he really asked for our help. He said he recognized that the county voter roll had not been kept up to speed, and he was very straightforward about that. Could we help? And again, we'll talk about that next time. But I do want to commend you, Michael. I think that that's such an important thing just for the directory and for you as a manager to stay on top of things. And it's not a small job doing that. The voter roll is bigger than the directory, because you may have two people on the directory who live at 7215 Chestnut, but there may be 5 people at that address who are voters. So
Yeah.
it really is. And again, I just want to stress, Michael, that we do not want you to feel in any way obliged to spend time on verifying voters. Data, yes, give us the village data. Thank you for making it accurate.
Yep, happy to hand over the data, no problem.
And that's all. Deliver the data, and then it should be hands off because of that firewall between council and committees.
Yeah, another
go ahead.
reason you're talking about bringing in if we can find one, a contractor to look at the voter roll is the chaos and the shortage of help during the pandemic, which really screwed the voter rolls up.
Yeah, the last time that I know that the voter roll was really thoroughly checked, was back in 2019. And I do think that last year was probably much more thorough than the year before. So I think we're getting back into the point where our voter roll will really be in great shape. But it's a great project to take on. It's a service to the village to have an accurate voter roll. It's a service to democracy. And any other comments on the voter roll? Again, it'll be an issue for discussion at our next meeting. We good to go? Anybody else? Okay. We had the vote to recommend that the council authorize hiring a short-term contractor. And I say to the 2 council members here, we hope you will champion us to do that. All in favor of asking the council to do this, please raise your hand again. Raise your hand, wave. Thank you, council members. Give us a hand here. We're going to need it, because we want to do things right. We want to do things well. We really do have a commitment to excellence. All right, final thing, 9 o'clock. We're not quite there. Community comments, questions, and suggestions. Anything else from the community? Okay, Arthur, I want to thank you for coming today. Larry, I want to thank you. Peter Kahn, Susan Kahn, thank you all for being part of this community project. And if there are no comments or suggestions from the community, we should just do assignments. So I'm going to sound like a teacher. Forgive me, I am a teacher. I would like to ask all of us to look at all 5 of those documents. And I will circulate Peter Kahn's draft, where he took a good running start at turning the 2023 regs into a sort of more long-term standard reg by taking the dates out. And so you'll have the 5 documents. I'll make sure you have them all. What I'd like us to do is divvy them up. So I'm willing to take on the big one, which is the 2023 overall ordinance. But you all should look at it because we all 5 need to look at it and get back to you all with suggestions. Jen, I'm looking at you as somebody who's a federal government employee to take a look at that voter verification document, right?
Okay.
Because that's the one I think is going to need maybe some work. And we may need to, incorporate the new definition of qualified voter into there. And so that it's not a huge task, but it's not minor, So thank you. Would you take that on?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Nomi, I'm going to ask you to look at the procedures for the forum, right, which are in the packet here. And that's only a page. I put that together from some previous forum guidelines that we had because last year's committee didn't publish theirs, but that's fine. We don't need that. We have earlier ones. And just take a look at that and see if there's something you could change. And, does that need to be improved in any way? Okay. Where's John? John,
I'm
I
here.
would like you to look at the instructions for the vendor.
Okay.
You're a very practical guy, and those are very practical instructions. They're the things that say the vendor has to, for example, rotate the names to prevent positional bias and, put postage on both ways and all that. So John, if you would take a look at that, and then we'll do a report back in 2 weeks. And if you have any changes in any of these documents, let us know. So Paul Weller, I haven't given you an assignment, have I?
No.
You're not getting off that easy.
So Marty,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going to be joining you.
Next week. Okay.
Oh, is it next week?
No,
thought
no,
it was
2 weeks. 2
October
weeks. The 18th.
18th.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can give us a markup and a
will.
one-page report. Yeah,
Okay.
you can do that in writing, knowing. Yeah. And I hope
Okay.
you really like the play too. It sounds like it's going to be a wonderful evening. So
Yeah.
lucky you. So the last item on here that we need to assign of we unfortunately have 5 of us and 5 documents is I'm looking at my list here. Hang on. All right. So I'm doing the overall rules and procedures. Jen's doing the voter roll verification. Let's see. John's going to do the mail vote contractor.
That's number 5, right? That's what I
Right.
see.
So you've got the vote counting procedures. All right. So Paul, if you look at those, again, it's in the packet tonight. And I looked it over. I didn't see anything that leapt out at me that needed big changes. But again, I wanted independent eyes on it. It's not up to me. It's up to us. So if you would take a look at that, and again, everybody report back with a markup or a note for the 18th. And so we can put together a packet of the 18th that has these proposed documents in it. And then we'll work from there. And so I don't know if we'll be able to approve all 5 on the 18th. It might take 2 meetings to get through the big ones. But at the very least, we can take care of the smaller ones and get started on the big ones. I see a hand up from Larry. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I would ask the committee to, this is lucky Naomi, stuff, to look at some type of redundancy that ensures we don't have the recording of the candidates' debate disappear as it did several years ago.
Yeah, I do remember that. You and I were both candidates in that forum. It disappeared.
I remember
Michael?
that as well.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Michael.
Yeah, that was the one where we stuck up for you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Michael, where are you, Michael?
I'm here.
That was a disturbing episode. Fortunately, in the past, water on the bridge, but we would really like you to just, as we look at, for example, the forum procedures, to have a piece in it probably that says that there will be double recordings, duplicate recordings, just to make sure that we don't have that glitch happen again. So
I'm happy to do that. I do record everything on the cloud from Zoom meetings, and then I do have a device that we can record. And I actually think it was Niles that was overseeing at the time and actually purchased that separate device. So, so that, yeah, I know I have heard stories about that, and I'm happy to double record.
I was going to say, I thought that Michael had, or Niles had invested in some multiple devices and backups since then. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. So we'll make sure to double record that one. I don't double record all of these, but of course there's no requirement that these all get posted, but
That actually brings up two final points for us. One is, I assume that we're willing to have our committee meetings recorded so that they're public record. Is there anyone who's opposed to that? I mean, I shouldn't assume, I should ask you. All in favor of having our committee meetings recorded, please raise your hand.
I say yay.
Okay.
Yes,
Yay.
hey,
Okay. Anybody
Second.
opposed? No opposed. Okay, again, public record. I think transparency matters. The last item is one that came in from a resident yesterday, who suggested that we should have a question on the survey. The council is putting together their annual BMA survey, community survey, and a resident came up with a good idea that we ought to ask people why they don't vote. One of the interesting things that happened this past year was there was 122 new people on the voter roll, but the number of people who actually voted didn't go up very much. I think it actually maybe even went down a little. I'd have to check the numbers, but and so the resident was saying, well, why don't people vote? The mail voting is easy. The committee is friendly. We make it accessible for everybody. And so I sent around a draft question that we could ask the council to put on this survey. Did you all have a chance to look at that
Marty,
question
could you
today?
send that question in? We had a lot of older questions on voting that were no longer appropriate that I took off, but this sounds like a good one. Send it in.
Arthur, I have it too. I'll send it to you too.
Well, we need to have the committee agree to send it. So let's do a committee vote that we would like to have that question in the community. And Arthur, thank you for putting it in. Katie, thank you for putting it in. But let's just make sure the committee everybody's okay with the question that got this afternoon.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of submitting that question, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, good to go. Katie, you've got, I'll send you the question. I don't know if you got the latest version of it, but I'll send it to you. Okay. And the last thing is, Katie, if you could in fact follow up and see if we can get that thing that Larry was asking about, which is the 2023 committee's voter verification procedures document. Okay.
Well, actually, if Michael and Arthur are still on, check Arthur, yes. Arthur as former liaison and Michael who would see these records, and what is the process here to request this kind of a document? Can you answer?
To request the
voter, yeah, from last year, the voter verification process they used last year, the document.
I believe it's part of the open records. We'll check on that.
If you could,
I don't
Arthur.
think so as much, so yes.
Okay,
We'll
thank you.
dig it out. Okay.
Thank you both very much. That's what I call council support for committees. Yay, team. Thank you. Anything else before we wrap up? It is 9:22. I thought we might end by 9:15. We didn't quite make that, but we came darn close. Anything else? Well, I'm just going to close with a big thank you to everybody. And
Great meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Marty.
Good meeting.
Impressive job.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you. Well, good job because of you all, not because of me. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Michael, thank
Good
you.
night. Good
And
night.
thanks to the
Good night,
council members who
everyone.
came too. And thank you, Larry, for speaking up.